Hi everyone, myself N. Vinay Kumar, working as an assistant professor in the Department of EEE, and here I am to continue my lecture on the course Utilization of Electrical Energy. Okay, in that course, now we are going to discuss about the topic classification of methods of electric heating. Before discussing about this concept, I just want to give you the glance idea regarding the topic that we have discussed in your previous class. In your previous class, we have discussed about the different kinds of or different modes of heat transfer. Okay, we are generating the heat energy by using the electrical energy, and we are going to transfer that electrical energy to a particular substance. Okay, how many modes of heat transfer are available? Okay, we have seen in detail about conduction, convection, as well as radiation with some practical example. Okay, this lecture is continuation from my previous lecture. Okay, here in this presentation we are going to discuss about the classification of methods of electric heating. Okay, and we are going to see in detail how we are going to generate the heat energy by using the electrical energy. Okay, the main classification is the main classification of electric heating is broadly classified into two categories. The first category is nothing but the power frequency heating. The first category is nothing but the power frequency heating, and the second category is nothing but the high frequency heating. Okay, first of all, I would like to explain you the reason why we are classifying or how we are differentiating the power frequency heating as well as high frequency heating. Okay, here in the case of power frequency heating, okay, we will be supplying the power from the source with supply frequency. That means without changing the frequency, we are directly connecting that source which is available or which we are getting from the grid. We are connecting it directly to the devices or equipment which is going to convert the electrical energy into heat energy. Okay, here we are going to increase the frequency, or we are going to decrease the frequency. Both the things will happen here. Both the things will happen in the case of high frequency heating. Okay, that was the primary difference. At the same time, here in order to transfer the heat energy generated from the equipment to a particular substance, here we are going to use the conventional methods. Those are nothing but conduction, convection, as well as radiation. By using these three methods, I was going to transfer the heat energy generated by the equipment to a particular substance. But here, I was not going to utilize those conventional methods. At the same time, I was going to utilize the electromagnetic principles in order to transfer the heat energy to a particular substance. Okay, like this I was going to classify. At the same time, if you are comparing the efficiency of power frequency heating as well as high frequency heating, the efficiency of power frequency heating will be very low when compared with the efficiency of high frequency heating. At the same time, for example, if I want to heat a particular object within a less period of time, okay, then which sort of electric heating that I should choose? Okay, definitely I need to go for the high frequency heating in order to heat a substance quickly. Okay, here it is somewhat slow. Okay, these are the basic differences between the power frequency heating as well as the high frequency heating. Okay, under this power frequency heating as well as high frequency heating, we are having the subcategories. Those are nothing but the resistance heating. Okay, at the same time, arc heating, And third one is nothing but the election bombardment heating. Okay, this was not there in your syllabus. This was not there in your syllabus. In your syllabus, we are going to discuss about these two heating techniques. These two heating techniques. At the same time, this resistance heating. What is so-called resistance heating? What is so-called resistance heating? In universe, you might be considering different kinds of materials. Okay, whatever might be the material that you have considered, that material will have the small amount of resistance. Will have the small amount of resistance. Even if you have considered the superconductors also, for those superconductors also, there will be some small value of resistance. Okay, if you have connected such a kind of material to an electric power supply, the current starts flowing through that material. If it is a conductor, okay, once the current is flowing through that conductor or through that material, a small amount of power will be dissipated in the form of heat energy. The reason is internally it will have some small value of resistance. Because of that small value of resistance, the power will be wasted in the form of heat energy. Okay, I was going to utilize that that phenomena over here, or I was going to utilize that principle over here in order to generate the heat energy by using the resistance heating. Similarly, in the case of arc heating also, I was going to supply the electrical energy and I will be producing the arc. Between two electrodes. Okay, and by observing the heat energy from that arc, I was going to heat the required substance. I was going to supply the heat energy to a particular substance. Okay, and these resistance heating as well as arc heating is subcategorized into two types as well as three types as well as two types. Okay, here the resistance heating is subcategorized into direct resistance heating as well as indirect resistance heating. Okay, at the same time, infrared radiant heating, and this was not there in your syllabus. Okay, at the same time, in the case of arc heating, we are going to discuss about the direct arc heating as well as indirect arc heating. We will see what is so-called direct arc heating as well as indirect arc heating in this presentation. At the end of the lecture, you will get a clarity what is so-called direct resistance heating as well as indirect resistance heating. Similarly, you will get a clear picture what is so-called direct arc heating as well as indirect arc heating. Okay, moving on to the next category, that is under this high frequency heating. Under this high frequency heating, we are having two subcategories. Those are nothing but induction heating as well as dielectric heating. Okay, at the same time, this induction heating is subcategorized into direct induction heating as well as indirect induction heating. Okay, we will see about all these, okay, in my presentation. Okay, first we will discuss about the resistance heating. Okay, resistance heating. This method is purely based upon the I square R losses. Purely depending upon the I square R losses. Okay, this I square R losses is mainly occurring because of the resistance that is present in a material. Hope you all know about the basics about the resistor. Okay, we are having different kinds of elements in your electrical network. Okay, under that, if you have considered the resistor is nothing but the power dissipating element. Okay, at the same time, it was not having the capability to store the energy. Whatever might be the electrical energy absorbed by the resistor, that energy will be dissipated in the form of heat. Okay, and one more thing, here also we need to satisfy the law of conservation of energy. Okay, if I was supplying a particular amount of electrical energy to an element, okay, I need to know what was happening with that energy. Blindly I cannot say that energy was not there. Okay, definitely I need to satisfy the law of conservation of energy over there also. Okay, as per that law of conservation of energy, whatever might be the electrical energy that I was supplying to a resistor, it will be dissipated or it will be converted in the form of heat energy. That heat energy value will be equals to this I square R loss. Okay, based upon this principle, I was going to discuss about the resistance heating, or by using this principle, I was going to generate the heat energy. Okay, At the same time, whenever the current is passed through a resistive material, heat is produced because of I square R loss. Okay, at the same time, there are two types of resistance heating. That is nothing but direct resistance heating, as well as the second one is nothing but indirect resistance heating. Okay, these are nothing but the two subcategories of resistance heating. What is so called direct resistance heating and what is so called indirect resistance heating, we will see in our next slide. Okay, direct resistance heating. Okay, here I had considered a chamber. Here I had considered a chamber, and in that chamber I had placed two electrodes. I had placed two electrodes like this. These two are nothing but my electrodes. Okay, these electrodes are immersed in a charge. These two electrodes are immersed in a charge. What is so called charge? What is so called charge? Charge is nothing but the substance for which you need to supply the heat energy. For which you need to supply the heat energy. I was considering that substance as charge. Okay, here what I had done is I had immersed those electrodes into that charge. And for these electrodes, I was going to supply the electrical energy. Okay, if you want me to draw that circuit, draw that diagram, the diagram will look like this. Simply looks like this. This is but my material for which I need to supply the heat energy. I was considering it as charge. Okay, these are my electrodes. Okay, this is my chamber. Okay, you might be getting the doubt, sir, which sort of electrical energy we need to supply? Either we need to supply AC power or DC power. Okay, here I was having the possibility to supply either AC power or DC power. Okay, here I can supply either AC or DC. Either AC or DC supply can be provided. For example, if I want to connect the DC power supply, there will be having the positive and negative terminals. Directly I can connect the positive and negative terminals of that battery to these electrodes. Okay. Similarly, if I was having the single phase AC power supply, I can connect the phase as well as neutral terminals directly to these electrodes. For example, if I want to connect a 3-phase power supply for that circuit, for that electrodes, okay, I was having only 2 electrodes. Don't worry about the count of the electrodes. You can increase the count of the electrodes. If you want to connect a 3-phase power supply, what you will do is you will place 3 electrodes instead of 2 electrodes. Okay, that is there we are having that feasibility. At the same time, in this direct resistance heating, what we need to do is we need to sprinkle the resistance material at the top of the charge. I was going to sprinkle the resistive material. The reason why I was sprinkling this resistive material is to avoid the short circuit. Between the electrodes and the chamber. Okay, for that purpose, I was placing the resistive material on the topmost layer of the charge. Okay, once if I had provided the electrical power supply, the current starts flowing through the electrodes. Okay, at the same time, as these electrodes are in contact with the charge, in contact with the charge, the current will start flowing through this charge also. Okay, once the current is flowing through the charge, okay, the heat energy will be released in the material itself. Okay, in this way I was going to heat the material which I want to heat it. Okay, that means by simply allowing the current to flow through this charge, I can heat that particular substance, which is so called charge. Okay, this is about the direct heating. Okay, the same thing was written in terms of points. In this methods, electrodes are immersed in a material. Electrodes are immersed in a material or charge to be heated. Okay, whatever might be the substance that I want to heat, I was placing that particular substance over here. I was placing that particular substance over here, and the charge might be, okay, particles or powder, pieces or liquid. Okay, whatever it is, whatever might be the particles, it may not be liquid, or it should not be pieces, or it should not be in powder form. Like that, constraints are not there over here. Okay, the charge may be powder, pieces or liquids. Okay, the electrodes are connected to DC or AC as shown in the figure. The same thing was written over there. The same thing was represented in my figure also. Okay, at the same time, okay, if I want to provide the single phase AC or DC, 2 electrodes are sufficient. But if I want to provide the 3-phase AC power supply, I need to increase the count of the electrodes. Okay, in my next presentation, next slide, okay, when metal pieces are to be heated, the powder of lightly resistive is sprinkled over the surface or pieces, okay, to avoid the direct short circuit. Okay, at the same time, the current flows through the charge and heat is produced in the charge itself. Okay, at the same time, this method is having high efficiency. This method will have high efficiency. You will get a question, sir, how can you justify that this method is having high efficiency? Okay, the reason is, here the heat is developed in the substance itself. Okay, so what will happen is, there is no chance for the losage of heat energy that is generated over here. For example, if I had generated the heat energy, and if I was using the modes of heat transfer to transfer that heat energy from the source to a particular substance or charge, okay, in between some amount of heat energy will be wasted in the form of loss. Because of that, efficiency of the system will decrease. But here in this case, the heat energy is directly generated in the substance itself. So I can say that this method is having high efficiency. At the same time, here I was having one drawback. The drawback is nothing but, here I was unable to control the temperature of the charge automatically. That means I was not having the flexibility to get the required amount of temperature. The reason is I was connecting a constant source. Because of that constant source, a constant current will be flowing through the charge. Okay, unless I change the value of current or value of resistance, okay, the heat energy generated by the electrical energy will not change. That means here I cannot control the temperature automatically. The same thing was written over there, as the current in this case is not variable. So that automatic temperature control is not possible in this case. Okay, but at the same time, this method of heating is employed in salt bath furnace as well as electrode boiler for heating water. Okay, in these two cases we are going to use this method. Okay, this is about direct resistance heating. Moving on to the next method, that is indirect resistance heating. Now you will get a doubt, what is the difference between the previous method as well as this method? In the previous method, I had used the electrodes over there. Okay, and the current was directly flowing through the charge, and the current was directly flowing through the substance which has to be heated. But here in this method, instead of that, I was placing a high resistive element. Which will act as a heating substance or heating element. Okay, I was placing that high resistive element. In this method, the current is passed through the high resistive element known as heating element. Placed either above or below the substance that is to be heated. Okay, that might be placed above the substance or below the substance which needs to be heated. Okay, at the same time, I just want to draw this circuit. Okay, for this high resistive element, I need to connect either AC power supply or DC power supply. Like I had discussed in your previous case, here also I was having that flexibility. Here also I was having that flexibility. At the same time, this is nothing but the heating chamber. This is nothing but the heating chamber. I will discuss in detail what is so-called heating chamber and what is the purpose of placing this chamber. Okay, at the same time, the material which has to be heated is placed over here, and this is my chamber, and this is my chamber. Okay, this is how the circuit will look like. Okay, at the same time, this is my resistive element. This is my resistive element. Okay, and this is my charge, and this is my charge. Okay, here as we are connecting the power supply directly to this resistive element, the heat energy will be dissipated. The heat energy will be dissipated by the resistor. The heat energy will be dissipated by the resistor, and that heat energy dissipated by the resistor has to be supplied to the charge or the substance for which we need to transfer the heat. Okay, for which we need to transfer the heat. Okay, as we are connecting the power supply directly to this resistive element, okay, heat energy is generated. That heat energy has to be transferred to the charge. Okay, that for example, if I want to transfer the heat energy, I was having different modes of heat transfer. Those are nothing but conduction as well as convection as well as radiation, which we have discussed in detail in your previous section. Okay, for example, if the heat transfer is through the mode of conduction, then there should be a direct contact. There should be a direct physical contact between the resistive element as well as charge. But here there is no direct physical contact. Okay, in between this resistive element as well as charge, there was a heating chamber. That means here by using the conduction mode of heat transfer, I cannot supply the heat energy generated by this resistive element to this charge. Okay, that means I need to go for another methods. Those are nothing but convection as well as radiation. Okay, by using those two methods, I can supply the heat energy to this charge, so that the substance will get heated up. Okay, the same thing was there on there. If heat is to be transferred by conduction method, the resistance must be in contact with the charge, but that was not happening over there. Okay, an enclosure known as heating chamber is required for heat transfer by radiation and convection for the charge. Okay, and we will be using this sort of indirect resistance heating in our domestic applications like electric iron boxes, micro ovens, etc. In most of the applications we will be preferring this. And also in the industrial purpose, where large amount of charge is to be heated, then the heating element is kept in cylinder surrounded by a jacket containing the charge. Like that we will be transferring the heat by using this indirect resistance heating. Okay, at the same time I was going to explain you the advantages. By using this indirect resistance heating, this arrangement provides an uniform temperature. Okay, as the current was not flowing through the charge, I can say that a uniform temperature can be expected by using this method. At the same time, automatic temperature control can be provided. Okay, in the previous case, that is in the direct resistance heating, we did not got that advantage, but here we got that advantage mainly because of the high resistive element which is placed over there. Okay, if that high resistive element is a variable resistor, simply by changing the resistance value of that resistor, I can change the current flowing through that resistor. If the current flowing through that resistor changes, then the I square R value change. If the I square R value changes, then the heat energy produced by that will change, definitely change. Okay, that means I can say that automatic temperature control can be provided. As I had said to you previously. This sort of method will be preferred in the case of your electric iron boxes. In your electric iron boxes, if you have observed, there you will be having a variable knob. Okay, simply by changing that variable knob, you will be able to generate the variable amount of heat. Okay, the reason is, if you are changing the knob there means you are changing the resistance. If you are changing the resistance means the resultant I square R loss will change, so that the heat dissipated by that resistor will change. Okay, moving on to the next one. Both AC and DC supplies can be used for this purpose at full mains voltage depending upon the design of heating element. That means I can use both AC as well as DC power supply like we have used in your previous case. Okay, at the same time, application, this is used in room heaters as well as immersion water heaters. At the same time, in various types of resistance ovens used in domestic and commercial cooking. Okay, in all these applications we are going to use this indirect resistance heating. Okay, this is about direct resistance heating as well as indirect resistance heating. Moving on to the next category, that is nothing but arc heating. That is nothing but arc heating. Here also we will be taking the similar kind of alignment that we have taken in the previous case, but here the transfer of heat will be done by using the arc that is generated by the electrodes. How we are going to generate that arc? Okay, how we are going to generate that flame, we will see here. Here, heating of matter by an electric arc. The matter may be solid, liquid or gaseous. Okay, that means the charge may be solid, liquid or gaseous. Okay, at the same time, when heating is direct, the material to be heated is one electrode. When the heating is indirect, or for indirect heating, the heat is transferred from the arc by convection or radiation. Okay, at the same time, in the case of direct arc heating, we are going to use different kinds of electrodes. Okay, those electrodes are nothing but electrodes used in arc furnaces. Those electrodes are nothing but carbon electrodes, graphite electrodes. Okay, like that we are having different kinds of electrodes, 3 different types of electrodes. Okay, they are made up of carbon electrodes. They are made up of anthracite coal and coke. Okay, at the same time, they are available at low cost, so I had mentioned it as cheaper. Okay, at the same time, uniform heating can be obtained with a large area of carbon electrodes. That means I can get the uniform heating by using the large area of carbon electrodes. Okay, at the same time, oxidation starts at 600 degrees centigrade. Okay, why we need to worry about the oxidation? The reason is, the element which is chosen, or the material which is chosen as a heating element, should not respond or should be withstand for high temperatures, or will be operated at high temperatures. At high temperatures, if you have operated a material, okay, sometimes there is a chance that a layer will be formed on that material. Okay, that layer is called as oxidation layer. Okay, what happens if there is an oxidation layer formed on a material? Okay, the lifespan of that material will get decreased. That means that oxidation layer is not preferred. Okay, that means by using these carbon electrodes at a temperatures below 600 degrees centigrade, I can avoid that oxidation layer also. But if you are going for temperatures above 600 degrees centigrade, then the lifespan of these carbon electrodes will get decreased. Okay, at the same time, used in small furnaces, that is in the manufacturing of ferro alloys, aluminium, calcium carbide and phosphorus, etc. Okay, in these small furnaces we are going to use these carbon electrodes. Okay, moving on to the next one, that is graphite electrode. Okay, this graphite electrode is nothing but the electrodes obtained by heating the carbon to a very high temperature. At the same time, less amount of graphite, about 1/4 of carbon is required for same current rating. Okay, that means if you are comparing the amount of carbon and graphite used for a particular current rating. Okay, for example, if I was using the X amount of carbon electrodes, okay, for 5 amperes current, okay, for the same 5 amperes current, if I was choosing the electrode as graphite electrode, Okay, I need to use only x by 4 percent of it. Okay, at the same time, here also the oxidation starts at 600 degrees centigrade. 600 degrees centigrade. At the same time, moving on to the next one, that is self-baking electrodes. Okay, this is another type of electrodes. Okay, they are made of special paste. The composition of paste depends upon the process for which it is employed. Okay, at the same time, when current is passed, heat is produced that bakes the paste to form an electrode. Okay, before the bakes will be appear in the form of paste. Once the current is flown through that electrode, the heat will be produced, and that heat produced bakes the paste to form an electrode. Okay, at the same time, used for the production of ferroalloys, chemical furnaces, and in production of aluminum by electrolytic process. Okay, that means here we are having three different types of electrodes. That means we need to pick any one of these electrodes based upon their properties. Based upon their properties. Okay, moving on to the next one, types of arc furnaces. Okay, we are having three different kinds of arc furnaces. Those are nothing but direct arc furnace, indirect arc furnace, as well as submerged arc furnace. Okay, here in your syllabus we will be discussing about the direct arc furnace as well as indirect arc furnace. Okay, at the same time, how does the direct arc furnace will look like? Okay, the direct arc furnace will look like this. Okay, before discussing about the direct arc furnace, I just want to give the explanation how the arc is produced over here. How the arc is produced by using these electrodes. Okay, the arc can be produced between the two electrodes by applying the more amount of voltage, that is at high voltages. For example, let us consider I had placed the two electrodes, okay, with certain air gap. Okay, if I was applying the higher voltages, what will happen? The air medium present the air present in between this air gap will get ionized. So a burning flame will be appearing between these two electrodes. That is nothing but an arc. Okay, that arc serves as a conduction path. So the current will start flowing from this electrode to this electrode. Okay, that means in order to generate the arc, either we need to go for higher voltages. That is one method. Okay, but going for higher voltages is not at all advisable. But in order to get the arc at the low voltages, is there any other procedure? Is there any other alternative process? Okay, yes, there is an alternative process. Previously, these two electrodes are separated by certain distance. Now what I was going to do is, I was going to join these two electrodes so that a short circuit path will be created. Because of this short circuit path, excess amount of heat will be produced as the excess amount of current is flowing. And if I was trying to separate these two electrodes, automatically arc will appear. That means at low voltages also I can generate the arc by using this adjustment. By following any one of those two procedures, I can generate the arc by using the electrodes. And one more thing, arc generating is a quite difficult thing. Once the arc gets present, okay, by maintaining the small voltage, we can maintain that arc without extinguishing. Okay, here in this direct arc furnace, I had placed the two electrodes. That might be any one of those three electrodes. Okay, and for these two electrodes, I can provide AC power supply or DC power supply. It's up to my interest. It's up to my interest. Okay, that means, for example, here if I want to connect the three-phase AC power supply, I need to use three electrodes. Okay, at the same time, this is nothing but the charge which has to be heated. At the same time, here once if I had connected the DC power supply or AC power supply, the current starts flowing through this. the current starts flowing through these electrodes, okay, and the electrodes gets heated up. As the electrodes gets heated up, it will generate the arc. This is so called arc. This is so called arc. Because of this arc, there will be a conduction path between the electrode as well as charge. So the current starts flowing through this charge. And if current is flowing through the charge or a particular substance, the heat energy will be released in it itself. Okay. At the same time, uniform temperature can be generated by using this method. When the supply is given to the electrodes, two arcs are established and current passes through the charge as shown in the figure. Okay. At the same time, as the arc is in direct contact with the charge and heat is produced by the current flowing through the charge, it is known as direct arc furnace. Okay. At the same time, here I can go for either AC power supply or DC power supply. The same thing was written over there. If the available supply is DC or single phase AC, 2 electrodes are sufficient. If the supply is 3-phase AC, 3 electrodes are placed at the 3 vertices of equivalent triangle. Okay. At the same time, the most important feature of this direct arc is that current flows through the charge and the stirring action happens inherently. Because of that stirring action, I can expect the uniform temperature throughout the charge. Okay. The same thing was written over there. The stirring action is inherent due to the electromagnetic force set up by the current. At the same time, it operates at 0.8 lagging power factor. Okay. This is about the direct arcing method. Okay. And the merits is it produces pure products when compared to other methods. Okay. At the same time, it is very simple and easy to control the composition of final product during the refining process. At the same time, demerits, it is very costlier. At the same time, electrical energy is expensive, but even though if it is expensive, we are using for smelting as well as refining of elements. Okay. At the same time, applications, this type of furnace is used to produce steel, alloy steel such as stainless steel, etc. Okay. This is about the direct arcing method. Also, this might be used for manufacturing of gray iron casting. Okay. Moving on to the next method, that is indirect arc method. Okay. The indirect arc method circuit will look like this. Okay. Previously, in the case of direct arc method, the arc is in direct contact with the charge that is present over there. But here, this is my arc. And that arc is nowhere in contact with the charge. Okay. That's why I was calling this method as indirect arc method. Okay. Here also I was going to, and one more thing, this method is only for used for only single phase AC power supply. Okay. This type of arcs will be used or will be fed only by single phase AC power supply. Okay. And by providing the single phase AC power supply to these electrodes, I was generating the arc. Okay. From the arc, the heat has to be transferred to the charge which is present over there. Okay. How the heat going to be transferred? Okay. We have seen the conventional methods. Those are nothing but conduction, convection, radiation. Okay. Here conduction is not possible. The reason is there is no direct contact between the charge as well as arc. That means I need to go for either conduction or radiation. By using any of those methods, the heat will be transferred. From the arc to the charge. Okay. Here, as there is no current flowing through the charge, so inherent stirring action will not take place. Okay. As the inherent stirring action is not taking place, I need to go for alternative method. Okay. That we'll see in your next slide. Okay. Here in indirect arc, the arc strikes between two electrodes, bringing momentarily in contact and then drawing them. Heat so developed due to the striking of arc across air gap is transferred to the charge is purely by radiation. Okay. A simple indirect arc furnace is shown in the figure. Okay. Previously, these two electrodes are brought in contact, like we have discussed about the different methods in order to generate the arc. Here in this method, instead of applying the more amount of voltage or high amount of voltage, here what we have done is we brought these two electrodes. We brought these electrodes momentarily in contact with each other and we have separated it. So the arc was produced over here. The arc was produced over here, and that arc will be generating the heat energy. That heat energy will be transferred to the charge either by using the radiation method or convection method. Okay. These furnaces are usually single phase. These furnaces are usually single phase, hence the size is limited about one phase load which can be taken from one point. Okay. At the same time, there is no inherent stirring action in this furnace as current does not flow through the charge, and the furnace must be rocked mechanically. As I had said to you previously, this rocking is done mainly to have the uniform temperature to the charge, through the charge. Okay. At the same time, the electrodes are projected through this chamber at each end along the horizontal axis. And this furnace is sometimes called as rocking arc furnace. Okay, the charge in this furnace is heated not only by radiation from the arc between the electrode tips, but also the conduction from heated refractory during the rocking action. So the efficiency of this arc furnace is quite high. Okay, not only by the radiation the heat is getting transferred, but by the rocking action. The liquid was, or the charge present inside the chamber is coming in contact with the furnace. Because of that, some amount of heat energy absorbed by the chamber will also be absorbed by the charge present over there. Okay. At the same time, the arc is produced by bringing the electrodes in solid contact and withdrawing them. Power input to the furnace is regulated by adjusting the arc length by moving the electrodes. Okay, this we have explained previously. Even though it can be used in iron foundries when small quantities of iron are required frequently, the main application of this furnace is the melting of non-ferrous metals. Okay, that was the main application of this furnace. At the same time, advantage: lower overall production cost per ton of molten material. Okay, lower production cost. Okay, at the same time, metal losses due to oxidation and volatilization is quite low. Okay, here we are not going to lose any metal losses, that is due to oxidation as well as volatilization. Okay, at the same time, this is flexible in operation. At the same time, disadvantages: no inherent stirring action is there, no current flow, as there is no current flow through the charge. At the same time, continuous rocking should be done. Okay, continuous rocking should be done to distribute heat uniformly. That means in order to have the heat constant, temperature constant through about the entire charge, we need to do that rocking continuously. Okay, in the previous method, you can ask me the question, sir, in the previous method we are not doing the rocking, but why we are doing? In the previous method, the current was flowing through the charge. Okay, inherently what will happen is, if the current is flowing, means the stirring action will take place, but here no current is flowing through the charge. Because of that, we need to adapt for another method, that is nothing but rocking method. That rocking method is utilized to have the uniform distribution of temperature or uniform distribution of heat throughout the charge. Okay, application: the main application of this type of furnace is melting of non-ferrous metals. That is about the direct arc as well as indirect arc. Okay, moving on to the next method of heating, that is high frequency heating. As of now, we have discussed about the power frequency heating. Now we are going to discuss about the high frequency heating. Okay, the main difference between the power frequency and high frequency heating is that conventional methods, the heat transferred either by conduction, convection, or by radiation. But in high frequency heating methods, the electromagnetic energy converted into heat energy inside the material itself. Okay, while giving the introduction itself, I had given you this difference. In the case of power frequency methods, we will be using the conventional methods, but here we are not using the conventional methods. Here we are using the electromechanical energy conversion, okay, so that heat will be generated in the material itself. Okay, moving on to the next one, the high frequency heating can be applied to two types of materials. Okay, the heating of the conducting materials such as ferromagnet and non-ferromagnet is called as induction heating. At the same time, the process of heating the insulating materials, is known as dielectric heating. At the same time, the heat transfer, previously I had given you this point, the heat transfer or the efficiency of your power frequency method will be quite low. At the same time, the efficiency of high frequency heating will be quite high. Here we have mentioned the values. The heat transfer by the conventional method is very low, of order 0.5 to 20 W per square centimeters. But whereas the heat transfer for high frequency heating is something around 10,000. There was a drastic difference, or there was a huge amount of change. Okay, that means if you want to heat the materials fastly, you need to go for high frequency heating. Okay, at the same time, okay, thus high frequency heating is most important for tremendous speed of production. Okay, if you want to have the production within a quick span of time, you need to supply more amount of heat energy. There, which sort of heating you need to prefer is, you need to prefer this high frequency heating. Okay, in that high frequency heating, we will see about the induction heating. In this induction heating is mainly depending upon the principle of transformers. Here, there is a primary winding through which an AC current is passed. And the coil is magnetically coupled with a metal which is to be heated, and that will act as the secondary winding. An electric current is induced in this metal when AC current is passed through the primary coil. Okay, similar to your transformer action. In the case of your transformer, what was happening? There you are having primary coil as well as secondary coil. For the primary coil, you will be providing the excitation. At the same time, in the secondary coil, the EMF will be induced. Okay, similarly here also I was having similar kind of performance. Okay, an electric current is induced in this metal when an AC current is passed through the primary coil. And the following are the different kinds of induction furnaces. Those are nothing but core type induction furnaces, and second one is coreless induction furnaces. There is another name for core type induction furnaces, that is low frequency furnaces. At the same time, the other name for coreless is high frequency furnaces. You will get an idea while we are discussing about the core type induction furnaces, why we are mentioning it specially as low frequency furnaces. The reason is, here I need to operate this furnace by supplying the power supply with low frequency. There are certain disadvantages if you are going for high frequency. Okay, we are going to see it over here in the case of core type. Okay, core type furnaces, they operate similar to a two-winding transformer. Okay, they are classified into three types. Those are nothing but direct core type. First one is direct core type, as well as second one is vertical core type, as well as indirect core type. Here in this lecture, we will first see about the direct core type. Okay, this is how the circuit of, or this is how the alignment of direct core type will look like. Okay, here I was having the primary coil for which I was going to provide the power supply. Okay, this is nothing but my secondary side. Here, instead of placing the secondary winding, I was having a annular hearth. Okay, in that annular hearth, I was going to place the charge or the material which has to be heated. or the material which has to be heated. I was going to place that material in that annular hearth. Okay, and one more thing here, the circuit, the secondary winding I2 value will not be equals to 0 only if there is a material present in that annular hearth. If I had removed that charge from that annular hearth, the annular hearth will becomes open circuited. Okay, will becomes open circuited. Okay, we'll see the operation in detail in our next slide. The core type furnace is essentially a transformer in which the charge to be heated forms a single turn secondary circuit. Okay, and is magnetically coupled to the primary by an iron core as shown in the figure. Okay, here it is magnetically coupled to the iron core. It is magnetically coupled to the iron core as shown in the figure. As shown in the figure. Okay, the furnace consists of circular hearth in the form of trough, which contains the charge to be melted in the form of annular ring. Okay, this type of furnace has the following characteristics. Okay, the metal ring is quite large in diameter and it is magnetically interlinked with the primary winding, which is energized from an AC source. Okay, the magnetic coupling between primary and secondary is weak. Okay, because of this weak magnetic coupling, okay, it results in high leakage reactance. High leakage reactance, that is low power factor. That is low power factor. To overcome the increase in leakage reactance, we need to decrease the frequency of power supply that we are supplying to that furnace. The reason is the reactance value. The reactance value will be depending upon the frequency value. If the frequency decreases, then the reactance value will automatically gets decreased. Then the reactance value will get automatically decreased. That's why here in this method we are going to decrease the frequency. That frequency has to be decreased to that frequency has to be decreased to that frequency has to be decreased to 10 hertz. That frequency has to be decreased to 10 hertz. At the same time, when there is no molten metal in the hearth, the secondary becomes open circuited, thereby cutting off secondary current. Hence, to start the furnace, the molten metal has to be taken into the hearth. Has to be taken into the hearth. At the same time, furnace is operating at normal frequency, which is called as turbulence. And severe stirring action happens in the molten metal. Okay, because of that stirring action, or because of that severe stirring action, okay, there was lot of difficulties. So it is necessary to operate the furnace at the low frequency. Okay, by operating the furnace at high frequency, we are getting two drawbacks. One drawback is the reactance value is getting increased, and the another drawback is the furnace is getting a severe stirring action. So, and the stirring action will be purely depending upon the frequency value. If the frequency value gets decreased, then the stirring action will automatically decrease. So in order to overcome these two drawbacks, we are going to operate this furnace at low frequency. Okay, how to get that low frequency? Okay, to get that low frequency, a separate motor generator set or frequency changer has to be used. Okay, to Kruppkil used for the charge is of odd shape and inconvenient for metallurgical viewpoint. This is another drawback. Okay, here in this slide we are going to see the drawbacks. Okay, at the same time, if the current density exceeds above 500 ampere per centimeter square, then what will happen is it will produce the electromagnetic forces in molten metal. Because of these electromagnetic forces, what will happen? The charges will get repel each other as they are in same direction. Okay, at the same time, the repulsion may cause interruption of secondary circuit. And this interruption will causes formation of bubbles and voids in the metals. Okay, that is so called pinch effect, and this pinch effect is negligible at low frequency. at low frequency. So that will also adds an additional advantage. That means in order to reduce that pinch effect, we need to operate this. We need to operate this furnace at low frequency. At low frequency. Thank you.